Good morning, everybody. Hi. Good morning. Hi. Are you here? Yeah, right? Please come back from the PC. Yeah, okay. So today we have a guest professor at Chibaba from Germany, Berlin, Germany. So he's an artist. So please enjoy this lecture or kind of performance of lecture.
Lecture.
Lecture. Yeah. So this is not a normal situation of this class, this course. Today is very dark and sound is already um, here. Okay, so go to your computer and concentrate on and feel. Okay, okay,
Okay.
Baba.
Okay.
Thank you. Welcome.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Baba. It's an honor to be able to talk here today, especially having a memory of sitting in this room 20 years ago. Today's lecture will be an English version of the lecture I gave in the spring semester this year in KEIO SFC. I tried my best to convert this essence of Eastern philosophy into the Western language without breaking the nuance. I hope my message will resonate to some students here who just start to live in Japan. This week is a challenge time for me since I am presenting my works in 3 locations in the world simultaneously. A film screening in UK, a video art exhibition in China, and a lecture in KOSFC Japan. As I'm not able to attend every location in the world, I decided to focus on the Asian opportunities for the time given. Therefore, immediately after the lecture today, I'll be flying to Shanghai to set up an exhibition and a lecture overnight. I thought of showing you these actions may help you to understand what I think of SFC Spirit is about. Please allow me to mention my deepest appreciation toward my family and friends, my mentors and teachers, and to KOSFC to guiding me to live the way I am. To begin with, I would like to briefly introduce myself. My name is Baba. I've graduated SFC nearly 20 years ago on the year 2000. I currently live and work in Berlin, Germany as a visual artist. Along with my artistic activities, I've been conducted as a guest professor in SFC University since April 2019, which makes today the second lecture of my academic career. My birth name is Atsushi, but many people outside Japan had a hard time pronouncing my name and ended up being called Achi. I've been using this name since childhood and the activities overseas. Speaking about my profession, the works are oftentimes accepted in the field of contemporary arts, such as conceptual arts, new media arts, and experimental films. Here are some of my photos from my past exhibitions for you to have better understanding. I select the appropriate method to strengthen the concepts, so I don't work with one specific medium. Recent works appears in the form of films that deals with time. Sometimes in a sculpture or paintings that freezes time. Regardless of the media format, I simply express my universal view based on my philosophical concepts. The exhibitions takes place mostly in Europe, Asia, and North America. And as I truly think art is a language without borders, my wish is to exhibit my artwork in every continent in the next 2 years. Today, I want to share some stories about how I see this world. I'll be using my experience as an example, hoping to trigger some students' motivation and imagination. As I will not be explaining each work, please connect the meaning behind it using your imaginations. And after the lecture, we'll have a Q&A time so we can go over the questions or exchange ideas you may have. And that'll be overview of the lecture today. The target of audience is obviously the students that took this class, but within any given groups, there will always be active people and non-active people, and this is common in the nature. But as I understand the characteristics of SFC University, I assume there are a higher ratio of active students. My message is dedicated to these people who is willing to challenge toward their life goals. I'm not sure if you know this film, but this is a classic masterpiece. The film is called The Matrix. The film came out in 1997 when I was a student in SFC University. And this is a famous scene when the main character takes a decision of living in an illusion or reality. The verse goes like this. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more. This scene is known to reflect the famous story of allegory of the cave, ancient Greek philosophy. I assume many people here already took the red pill since you have chosen a path to study abroad and trying to learn something you don't know. So once you decide to step out of your comfort zone and live with your own commitment, a pattern emerges during your challenges. The order appears as follows. The first is the comfort zone, then the fear zone, then the learning zone, and the growth zone. The area I can contribute to you will be the how to get out from the comfort zone. The experience I'm taking as academic role is my new experience, so that means I just stepped into the fear zone. Therefore, as you just stepped into the university, there's not much difference of experiencing something unknown. So we are on the same stage. I learn from you and you learn from me. It may sound odd, but I would like to show you a sketch from my dream I saw 3 years ago. It was a dream I saw in the early morning of May 2016. It was one of the dreams that stayed in my mind, so I immediately took a pen and wrote everything I could remember. If the dream is indicating this situation, I'll be seeing myself from that corner. And there was no sound as far as I remember, but there were emotions left behind. I could only see the partial surrounding environment, such as a crowd of people in front of me, 2 people standing on the side of the stage, and a blue sky and the ground through the long window. But 3 years ago, I had no clue that I'll be teaching in the university, especially in the school that I once graduated. Regardless of this dream being foresight or not, I feel strong meaning behind talking here today. Talking about a dream, I cannot avoid mentioning well-known psychologist, Dr. Carl Gustav Jung. I will refer to his model of psych. Dr. Jung explained our consciousness in 3 stages. The first is the consciousness. That's when we are awake. The second is the personal unconsciousness. That's when we're asleep or childhood trauma. And the third is a collective unconsciousness. It is a deep memory we share among the same species. This psych model is close to Akasha in ancient India philosophy or Arayashiki in Buddhism philosophy. So therefore, according to Dr. Jung, if I were to look deeply into my personal dream, there exists a connected senses we all share. Today, I would like to present you an important aspect of time being based on the dream I saw. I'll be extending my imagination to connect the message of the world inside. Everything in this nature has differences and its purpose. This is my point of view toward our existence. Every life has meaning. This is also same toward us. Everyone is different. Personality, interest, race, gender, age. There are characteristics toward every kind, and they're all unique. There's no hierarchy toward these differences. They only appear based on the necessity. I have named these differences as the Great Design. It is the one and only design that nature has created. Therefore, acknowledging your design leads to your purpose of your life. If there's someone who gets obsessed with something and feels happy for a long time, perhaps could relate to your great design. German philosopher Goethe has claimed the following quote: "Man is not to solve the problem of the universe, but to find out what he has to do and restrain himself within the limits of comprehension." All right, it's easy to say, but hard to believe. It took me more than 30 years to realize this feeling. If I were to think of myself when I was 18, the elements were already there, and even during my young childhood. Here's a tip to realize your great design easily. The great design is the intersection of things you like, things you're good at, and things you can't stop. It's simply the feeling of being obsessed. This is not given by someone. You have to search for it. And as you proceed in your life, certain situations may distract you from not seeing it. But it is an important state of mind to think over your purpose, to enrich your life in these times of rapidly shifting paradigms. I would like to talk a little bit of myself in order to share some experiences. I was born in 1977 in Kamakura, Japan. As my mother being a calligrapher, my fundamental visual expression is calligraphy. One of the main reasons for being obsessed in Eastern aesthetics is the experience I had during my years of childhood. I also remember spending lots of time with my grandparents. In the age of 9, I moved to USA due to my father's business. In the Western world, you must stand out to get noticed, so I gave out my drawings to my friends, and soon they accepted in the community. This was a moment I realized pictures tell more than words. A couple years later, we moved to San Francisco and adapted to the community by a similar method. At the age of 13, I came back to Japan. For me, this cultural adjustment was much more difficult than going out. I started to see many things that I didn't realize when I was living only inside Japan. On top of that, I was shocked by the overhyped entrance exam system. As I thought I refused to do it twice in my life, I selected a high school connected to the university. So I went to SFC high school. But in the high school, I was a complete dropout. I barely made it every year, and I lost the motive to study or be passionate about. I realized having a motive was crucial for me to learn. But a turning point comes during the summer vacation of my senior year in my high school. I found a short film competition for MTV, music television. As they accepted storyboards, I entered several ideas in the competition. Back then, the personal computer with video editing capability was rare and expensive. And as a result, my entry made it to the finalist, and I felt confidence first time in my life. So the SFC University became the ideal destination for me to persuade my challenges. I became a student of SFC University in 1996. As I was clear on what I wanted to do, I visited many labs and seminars to learn about visual imaging. As I was also conscious toward the environmental problems, I attended several labs in SFC, creating visual contents, initiating environmental projects, and experiencing media art. When I was a sophomore, I barely had time attending classes due to my client works. It seems I was working all day long, being simply obsessed to be able to earn money with my imagination and techniques. One of the opportunities to train myself in the beginning was creating visual artworks for contemporary theater performances. Theatrical arts require everything in life, which I believe an important aspect of expression, especially in the world today. In most weekends, I was showing my works in the music venue and clubs. And with the money I earned, I would travel abroad. I also met my wife in the last year of the university, out of pure coincidence. It seems like the experience I had during my university days establishes the fundamentals of the life I'm living today. As I graduated in the peak of recession, I continued the freelance work, establishing a small company with my friends. I worked on many client works in order to maintain the living. But one day I started to question myself if I wanted to use my creativity all my life to stimulate economic consumption. At the age of 30, my wife and I decided to leave Japan and started our new life in somewhere in the world. we left for Berlin, Germany. Starting life and challenging. In order to maintain their living, I worked on visual design projects that requires communication without language. About 1 year later, after living in Berlin, I was appointed to create visual artwork for contemporary theater performance and ended up touring the world. And gradually, my work started to be considered as artworks, and exhibition opportunities emerged worldwide. I make my living by realizing my imaginations. If I were to look back into 42 years of my life, I've been living 18 years away from my homeland. This is nearly half of my life. It seems longer I am away, I realize more identity of being Japanese. In my personal opinion, having a perception of inside and outside is the only way to view things outside of the box. Up to now, I've never thought deeply on what art is. But through this opportunity, I would like to define my view on art. According to Russian-American linguist Roman Yakobson, explains the types of language translation under these definitions. Transmutation is an interpretation of verbal signs by means of signs of non-verbal sign systems. For me, this explanation feels close toward what I think of art is. If I were to explain art in my own words, it will be a desire to see the unseen a pure impulse and curiosity. There are things that fulfills me, and it is a way of life. The perceptions I cannot avoid, signatures of mankind, imagination from unconscious mind, echo of inspiration left behind. Is this by chance or necessity? Or is it fate or serendipity? Exposing the image I see, inside out. There are only two things that allowed me to continue living as an artist. That is, one, I didn't quit. And the second was I was lucky to meet the right people. It may be a rough way to explain, but if you do something no one else is doing for 10 years, someone will start calling you an artist. I will also explain the reality. Living in an artist depends heavily on luck. The effort will not always pay off. It takes a lot of time to establish your position, possibly lifetime or never. And this preparation stage is quite tough. You'll face years of no response, sometimes losing your confidence, but you must continue creating. Art is not about creating a product, it is a way of life. Therefore, my advice is don't start art for the living unless you have a strong commitment and you're aware of the consequences you may face. On the other hand, there are things you can achieve. First of all, you're the creator of your creation. Without you, your art will not exist. The feeling of satisfaction after completing one artwork is a bliss. And secondly, you have freedom, time, place, or theme. It's all your choice. And lastly, you get to meet all kinds of people around the world through cultural exchanges. And a few important skills for artistic activities. First is the physical strength. From my experience, you will need this all the time. It's quite physical work than you think. And it may not be a problem for people sitting here, but English is the de facto standard when living globally. I advise you to get used to it. And the most important will be the sensing ability, which I break down to feeling, observing, and intuition. I think for some senses you're born with it, but you can also achieve by years of training. But these skills are not toward art, but as I see it as a crucial skills for the time being. I also realize there are two types of people in a group. One is a group of people that receive satisfaction through consuming, and the other group is a group of people that receive satisfaction through creating. And of course, in order to live as an artist, you must be the later group. In order to not to select the wrong path, please question yourself which type you belong to. But you're still young and you still have plenty of time. You should give it a try toward anything you feel like. But if I were to tell one thing to myself in your age, I would tell myself, whatever you start, do it all the way. I want to introduce you one of my favorite artists, whom I think that accessed the secrets of the creation. His name is Kukai. Personally, he's a Da Vinci of the East that existed more than 1,200 years ago. Kukai, more commonly known as Kobo Daishi, is one of the key figures to establish today's Japanese culture. His achievements covers from art, philosophy, architecture, engineering, literature, and calligraphy. In the beginning of the 9th century, he was one of the envoys sent from Japan to learn from Tang Dynasty under 20 years plan. In a result, he achieved the goal in 2 years, receiving the most important esoteric Buddhism knowledge from Grand Master Keika in Kinlon Temple, Xi'an. After coming back to Japan, Kukai established Shingon Buddhism, which is still active in the world today. Rather than his religious figure, I want to introduce you his artistic side of his lifetime works, giving you the insight into his extraordinary senses. Here are my personal top 3 favorite artworks created by Kukai. Kukai is known to be the best 3 calligrapher of Japanese history, namely Emperor Saga, Tachibana no Hayanari, and Kukai. Personally, Kukai is by far my favorite. The actual script is mostly lost, but there are still few exist in Japan today. This is known to be one of the most important letters in Japanese history, known as Fushinjo. It is a letter written by Kukai to Saicho, another legendary monk who established Tendai Buddhism in a similar timing. This inscription copy based on Kukai's original script was found recently in Western Japan. It seems like they patchworked the different writings from Kukai, but Kukai is known to have a special skill of changing handwriting for each letter. Personally, this is one of the most beautiful calligraphy of God I've ever seen. Here's another masterpiece by Kukai. I don't think he made this as a contemporary art, but in my view, this is absolute timeless conceptual art. The location of his birthplace, Zentsuji Temple, Kagawa, Japan, the location where he received the teachings of esoteric Buddhism, which is the Kinlon Temple in Xi'an, China, and the location where he ends his life, which is at Koyasan in Japan, appears to be on the exact same latitude. Note that in 9th century, there's no accurate maps or smartphones. And I thought this is one of the outstanding discoveries to understand Kukai in deeper level. And lastly, the biggest achievement, what I think of Kukai goes to his books. Out of all his masterpieces, I want to mention this one, The Meanings of Sound, Sign, and Reality. It is known to be the oldest linguistic textbook existing in Japan today. As the title explains, the book covers fundamental concepts of creating our reality. Surprisingly, the text covers the explanation that was still not yet discovered in Western science, such as astrology and physics. I personally think Kukai nailed it. Here's one of the most well-known phrases from this book. 5 elements all have voices. 10 realms contain logos. 6 senses are signs. This is the reality. To wrap up, Kukai mentions that reality is made up of voices and words. This phrase refrained me from another famous text written in the beginning chapter of New Testament Bible. In the beginning was Logos, and Logos was with God, and the Logos was God. The New Testament was written around 1st to 2nd century, known to have a strong influence of Greek philosophy. As the powers of Arabian countries rose, they imported many knowledge from the Greek philosophy and established Islam philosophy, known as falsafa. Etymologically, falsafa and philosophy roots its word to philosophia in Greek. In the 9th century, when Kukai visited Tang Empire, in Islam, Abbasid Caliphate was forming its peak cultural power. In between the 8th and 9th century, Xi'an and Baghdad was the largest city in the world. So here's my hypothesis. By looking into the philosophical similarity between Kukai's quote and the Western knowledge, it makes clear sense if Kukai met a person in Xi'an who had all these secrets. Xi'an in the 8th century was full of diversity. The city has Islam mosques, Christian churches, and Zoroastrian temples. It is hard to be not to be influenced by the continental knowledge, especially when there's a trade route of Silk Road fully functioning. As I researched, I came across a figure that is known to be one of the most important figures in Islam alchemic history. His name is Jabir ibn Hayyan, known as Gerber in West. His scientific discovery is still being used today, such as the concept of alkaline or aqua regia, commonly used in melting metals. And Hayyan is known to be the figure appearing in the famous novel Alchemist, written by Paulo Coelho. It is just my personal speculation that Kukai and Hayyan had met in Xi'an, but as you understand the Kukai's extraordinary knowledge in a short period of time, it can only be explained through an intellectual exchange. Once again, this happens along 34-degree north latitude in 9th century. It is an important cultural path of connecting the civilization of the East and West. The reason why I talked about Kukai is he's my role model of establishing continental cultural relation. Another interesting fact is that immediately after his return to Japan, from Tang Dynasty, China, his creativity sparked. Looking through history, many intellectuals extend their activities after seeing the world outside. I explain this symbol into following. Here's a famous drawing by Leonardo da Vinci, known as Vitruvian Man. It is said to explain the ideal human proportions and the golden ratio, but I explain like this. The outer circle represents environment, and the inner circle as cognition. In other words, the world you recognize. In reality, everything you can imagine is a combination of the self-surroundings and self-experiences. Here's another drawing by Vitruvian Man by Robert Flood, created in the 16th century. It is clearly written macrocosmos and microcosmos inside the drawing. It is a Western way of expressing mandala. To summarize, I explain as follows. Expanding environment expands your limits. It's simple, and I'm sure a lot of people here can share this feeling because you have already gone out from your homeland. Let me mention clearly, going out in the unknown world is the only way to break out of your comfort zone. At the same time, you understand yourself more. And once you're outside, it is unlikely to go back to the old way of thinking. Your perceptions have expanded. And I believe this is a key toward global understanding. Initial concept of SFC was established under global thinking. I ask you to support this philosophy and expand yourselves without limits. I want to provide you an opportunity to experiencing one of the most sophisticated forms of Eastern philosophy, experiencing Zen Buddhism. A good friend of mine and a respected monk, Seigaku, will give introduction to the world of Zen. It'll be a 3-day trip experiencing a wisdom of the East through the actual practice, extending opinions and views toward the modern society. You'll be visiting Eiheiji, a headquarters of Zen Buddhism, and an actual meditation in Tenryuji, another Zen temple nearby. It'll be one of the rare opportunities to experiencing the authentic Zen experience. So for those interested, please send me a proposal with a subject Zen. Teachers, students, administrations, anyone's welcome. If there are too many people, I will choose based on the objective of the proposal. And we will hire a bus and charter from SFC to AH directly. And the fee is covered, so anyone who's interested, please let me know. The date, we will talk about it. The winter is usually too cold.
I hear babies cry. I watch them grow. They'll much more than I'll never know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
To conclude the lecture, I put my thoughts into the zeitgeist. If I would explain the society as a pendulum, there are two forces that is holding each other. Hereby I have explained the outer force as civilization and inner force as culture. This centrifugal force and centripetal force balancing together constructs our society. Looking through the history, when these two forces lose each other's balance, the society collapses. As we see the current technological development, it is likely that outer force continues to accelerate. Therefore, the art takes its role as one of the inner force to hold together the social balance. Here are two quotes from my world-renowned scholars associated with KEIO University. A true harmony emerges when colliding different views in a fair manner. Taro Okamoto is a widely accepted Japanese modern artist. Works known as the Tower of the Sun. It's a symbol of Expo 70. And Myth of Tomorrow. This is located in Shibuya Station Corridor. It's a big painting. But he attended KEIO Junior High School in the 1920s. Toshihiko Izuzu, a former emeritus professor in KEIO University and a highly acclaimed Japanese linguist and a philosopher, also known as a language master, speaking over 30 languages, mentions under these words. Cross-cultural collision will be the trigger to our critical thinking, enabling one's framework to be considered with others' framework. Furthermore, by overcoming conflicts, it opens our intellectual views in a larger and higher dimension. Japan has entered a new imperial era of Reiwa. In my translation, it is an era of resonance and harmony. And the calligraphic meaning of the resembles to make harmony with God's message. And as Kukai and Bible explains, God is the Logos, and Logos is the resonance. I believe art is an essential language in this world that creates a resonance between the different cultural aspects into a harmony. Over 20 years of my creative activities, I realized I had only created things I clearly saw inside myself. It is another form of my inner vision appearing outside through the dedicated medium, and I call it artwork. So if I were to understand the message behind the bizarre dream I saw, it would be I am talking here because I saw it clearly in my mind. And this relation between the imagination and realization is the most important lesson I learned through the way of arts. Imagination is the direct vision of the possible future. And if there's anyone that sees the similar dream, it'll be your turn to introduce the zeitgeist to the next generations. So please be prepared. Welcome to SFC. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cool and beautiful and inspiring talk. So it's now you can ask a question to or comments or yeah, okay. Here, there, please.
Hi. So,
Hello.
first of all, thank you so much for a very wonderful presentation. And it was a very intriguing performance, as I would call it, very experimental and avant-garde. And what I really want to ask you is the relationship. There's a lot of visual information going on in your art, and I want to ask you about the auditorial, the sound information as well, from the because we see a lot of sound as well from the art you presented, but also through the sound that you created in the classroom, and also the when you were drawing, I saw that you were wearing headphones, so it made me really wonder, what kind of music, what was going on inside your head. So, if you can explain a little bit about the relationship with your music and your visual arts.
Yeah, the sound is just part of the element that I use. Of course, I'm more of a visual artist, so I concentrate myself on the visual aspects. But when I imagine, of course, there's a sound attached to it. So I try to replicate what I hear in my mind, but I don't make it. I collaborate with my fellow musicians or artists that can design sounds.
Do you share your idea of the sound, this kind of sound or this kind of music to your fellow collaborator? So that is inspired, find in your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but the sound is very important aspect because I think everything started with sound. So vision comes later, actually. Yeah. So, and somehow the sound reacts in the beginning phase of culture. It's very direct. I think it's more direct to your brain before thinking. So in these aspects, I use the sound elements to directly speak into the brain before you make a logic with your eyes. So it's just a difference of how you express in an order. But in the result, it has to harmonize in the end. So it's actually very difficult to cut elements inside my works because everything in my imagination is all together. Does that answer your questions?
Yes. Thank you very much. What were you listening to when you were drawing the painting?
Just ambient music or something I can inspire myself. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
The tone I'm always play during the lecture is a tone of A. It's a frequency of A. I think it's A0 or A1. I don't know. It's kind of a low frequency that harmonizes with the vibration of the space, actually. It's called Schumann resonance. We have these 3 resonances inside the Earth, which is a resonance from the universe, actually. And one of them is very close to the tone A. So I figured out by playing this tone, actually there's 2 types of people, either sleep or concentrate. But for me, I don't want to waste my energy to people sleeping because they're not my audiences. So I want to make them sleep, actually. So I play this tone all the time and differentiate the audience with who I have to talk to because I have to use my energy to tell something. And I don't want to waste my energy, so that's why I use this tone.
Yes, because the sound, it was very intriguing all the time as you were talking. It like really made me like more attracted and concentrated to your.
Yeah, that's also a part of the game, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. And related to that, his question about painting, do you have any plan or image of completion before starting the drawing, or you that picture happened to be drawn?
I have an image, but like paintings or something that improvisational artworks, you don't really. It doesn't be exactly as your image, but you make
the detail is different, but you have a kind of image of the whole.
Yes,
Yeah.
always.
Okay.
I never waste my creativity doing random things. Actually, I have to simulate in my brain and just use the energy just on the necessary point.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Any question? Any other question? Yep.
Do you ever go through like a creative block?
Sorry, I couldn't hear the last part.
A creative block, so like your creative flow, just your creative juices don't flow.
Like a
Like
lighter's block.
trouble,
or
like,
something,
thinking?
a creator's block.
Like reader's block and writer's block, yeah.
Is that a flow?
You get stuck sometimes, like
Oh, I mean
Sometimes-
like stuck as a.
like creatively.
Oh, of course, all the time.
Like what do you do? I mean, like, it's like what do you do then?
What I do? Suffer.
Thank you.
Because if I don't have a creativity, that means I can't buy food. I can't maintain my family. It's that kind of suffering because I fully depend my living on my creativity. So, but actually, when it works, it's cool because what you're eating is out from your imagination. So this is it's a big revolutionary feeling when you realize when you fully relive with your own creativity and own your own art, more like. That means having no clients. No one pays for you. Yeah? When you're making your art and you're selling it, which means it's all you kind of conquer the capitalism. This is a revolutionary feeling that I felt about 4 or 5 years ago when I fully start to live with my artwork. And this blows everything. It's so strong and so scary, and everything is in the peak of feeling, and it just continues even today.
Do you like dreaming?
Oh, yeah.
Do you like dreaming?
I don't like it, but I see it all the time. I can't control.
Do you log all the things you see in your dreams?
Most of the time. Most of the time comes in my dreams. Yeah, and not 100% dream, but the catch of the inspiration or imagination is likely to come inside my dream, but not all the time.
Have you ever tried lucid dreaming?
Yeah, but it didn't work for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I just see it all the time, but I don't want to deal too much into my dreams because I get stuck.
So on that black notebook, there was like a little sapphire on the right-hand side, and it looked like one of your visual artworks that you showed us with the ball moving, the black ball that was moving.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering whether any sort of your creative inspirations came from your dreams and you saw concepts.
That I don't remember. I don't remember if I exactly saw in my dream, but actually, dream doesn't tell you the answer. It's just elements of one of the creative imaginations. Yeah, but you have the concepts, which is more logical, which you have to think when you're awake, and you kind of match it with a dream you saw in the patterns, and kind of feel like, oh, maybe this is talking about this. So that's more conscious way of attaching two elements together. You don't depend fully on dream. That's too, for me.
Thank you.
Okay. The question.
I actually have a question on the more technical aspect on how to learn how to create these artworks or how to learn to sketch, how to create films. Did you kind of learn it as you go? Like, did you self-teach, or was there a particular person you went to learn those skills? And what can we do if someone in this room wants to pursue that in SSC?
I self-taught myself, and for these kind of profession, I think there's only one way. You just have to create and learn from yourself. I don't think I can teach you the techniques, but techniques doesn't assure you that you're going to make a cool artwork. It's more self-experience oriented elements that makes the originality, and no one wants to see the copy. You always have to see the originality. So, yeah, I think you just have to create. That's the only thing I could tell. And it's not about logic. It's about this. Like, there's a lot of detours actually in the creativity. When you do this type of stuff, you go to a detour. You kind of learn from that through experience. And I guess learning that is the most and the fastest way to achieve the goals.
Anybody? Next question? Yep. Great.
If you weren't an artist, what job would you want to do?
Okay?
Yeah.
Oh, great question. Great question. If I wasn't an artist, what would I do? Street cleaner. Yeah.
Why is that?
The result comes out really quickly.
Oh,
When you clean, it's obvious that you cleaned. Eh?
right. Yeah.
For art, you don't get an immediate result.
Mm.
It's like sometimes 10 years almost. No one reacts for 10 years, and all of a sudden people start to react. It's so unpredictable and non-constant days that you have to face. I kind of miss this instant result achievement. And I like the way of thinking of cleaning, because it makes everyone happy, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I actually have one question about becoming an artist, professional artist. So when I was a teenager, I presented last time. I wanted to become a filmmaker, a kind of artist of the visual images, but I didn't. So at that time when I was a SLC student, I realized it is too difficult to become a professional artist as a job, not as a hobby. So I found that occupation, I can create something new and I can express that, express it. Is another job is a professor. Professor do research and thinking new way and thinking and propose that to the society. So it is good for me. So that I chose the, going to the graduate school and become a researcher, a professor. So maybe there is some student interested in to become a professional artist, but the reality is hard. So what is the point you can overcome that kind of feeling of the difficulty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I think, as I mentioned in the lecture also, art is not about becoming artist is not about making art only. So from my explanation, Mr. Iba is an artist in his genre. So pattern language master is the way of art in my sense. So, and as I said, like a street cleaner, if you're really, really exceptionally good with street cleaning, that is a form of art too. People may look at you as a street cleaner, but in your mind, I think it's same as art. So it doesn't have to be exactly you're making painting or sculptures. That's more materialistic understanding of art. But for me, that is not the important aspect. It's about you just deal with it, whatever you committed. And just for anyone who tells you, you don't give a shit, you know? You just do it, you know, like. So this mentality of toughness is the art itself, and it's more, yeah, as I said, it's a way of living. It's about commitment.
I love that conception of an artist. Yeah, very
Okay.
much. Yeah, and yeah, sometimes there is a student who want to become a lighter in the future. Oh, okay, do it from now. So
Yeah.
that is my advice. So
Yeah.
very similar.
I think
yeah. Okay. So I found that you start a small production company after the graduation of the SOC. That I think that kind of combination of the business or company and doing the creating something new is very important to live in the society. So yeah, I found that is a very interesting point.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you have any question? Another question?
So in your presentation, you said you moved to Germany in like 2007, and I remember you said there was no limits. And when you mentioned about like the no limits thingy, did you find no limitation in terms of your like I don't know way of expression or just like the social atmosphere itself, like kind of like didn't limit your like thinking and stuff?
It's both actually, because like society rules. If there's a limit on that point, you have to limit your imagination too in the end, because there's a rules. You block yourself unconsciously, right? So I think everything is connected.
So Germany didn't like
Yeah,
compared to
there was no rules. I think, and less people. That means less rules, and you can do whatever you want. No one cares, but no one cares. That's the downside of it. But for me, the Tokyo was too systematic, and there's too many people that already created many rules, and this was blocking my creativity. So I never saw something. You see a lot of arty things, you know. It's a product. For me, it's not an art. It's just a product of some ad agency giving you work. And for me, that doesn't trigger me, or it's not interesting. Because it's just about, in the end, you have a client that wants to sell more product. So, but in Tokyo especially, since this is so strong and there's no other ways to do it, people think this is art. And from my experience, I did so many works that had clients and through agencies. And I started thinking, whoa, what am I doing? Actually, this is not even creative. And having an answer from other people, for me, was too easy. It's like solving a math problem. And I see it after 5 seconds of talking. I know what the answer is. So there was nothing that stimulates me creatively that made me enthusiastic.
Right. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed your videos and your other visual works.
Thank you.
And I noticed that the first visual work that you showed us was a painting that was quite abstract. But in your videos, you used a lot of objects that could be easily found in our usual life, like ants and water drop and TV monitor. So I was wondering if you have created or are you, like if you are planning to create visuals that are completely imaginative or purely metaphysical.
Yes, I have a lot of abstract works, but mostly I never use 3D CG, so nothing is 3D in my works. Everything is live. That's how I can sell my works, because I make everything live. So some collector who wants to buy it, I just sell this analog portion of my artwork. And for video, I just make it offer to public as a free, accessible film art. Yeah, and I do have more metaphysical or more abstract version, but I didn't show it today.
I see. Yeah. Thank you.
Somebody else? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go. Go ahead.
Sorry, I have one more question to ask.
Yeah.
I carry a book about Zen myself as well.
Oh, wow.
And the reason I started reading a book about Zen from like 3-4 months ago, there was this period in my time I was like very busy with a lot of things. And I go out and do like video editing and shooting as well.
Yeah.
And in times where I find myself really, just mumbled up in my head, I turn to this book and, I reach into my inner peace. So
Okay.
I would like to ask you, like, what is your experience with Zen? Like, how do you got into it, and how it kind of helped with your creative work?
Yeah. Well, Zen is very special if you look into world culture relation, because it's Japan. First of all, is the end of the continent. It's the very, very end of the East. So Zen Buddhism actually comes from mainland China, from India in the roots. Yeah? So it traveled along over a few hundred years or a few hundred years, and ended up in the island. And it was it was minimalized. It was taken out into a very minimal form of philosophy, which became the Zen philosophy. So for me, this is very, very unique. This is why I think it's one of the most unique Eastern philosophy that you can find in the world today. And I'm not like a Zen Buddhist, but I do like the philosophy behind Zen. I learned a lot from it, and I think it is one of the most influential things that gave me my creative activities, actually. But by the way, where are you from?
I'm half Thai, half Japanese, but I've been living in Thailand for 18 years.
Bangkok?
Bangkok, yeah.
How did you end up being interested in Zen?
Zen because, well, firstly, around 90% of people in Thailand is Buddhist.
Yeah.
And, my mom is very, very Buddhist.
Yeah.
She goes to temple almost
Yeah.
every morning.
Yeah.
And like for me, it was like I didn't really know the reason to it in the beginning as well. But as I grew up, like my mom taught me to do more meditation,
Yeah.
like sit down and learning about being with myself. And just by being with myself, not only feel like more relaxed, but I also feel like in terms of my, creativity, it like really expand me up to, seeing many things.
Mhm.
So
So you are already your environment. There was a lot of Buddhism temples
Yeah.
in Thailand.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah.
But it's the Buddhism split from two routes. The
Yeah.
China route and the Southeast Asian route.
yes, yes, yes.
And that's why you got interested in the Zen Buddhism, because of the different.
Yes.
Roots
'Cause,
of the-
yeah, there was one day before I was flying from Thailand to Japan, and on the way I needed a book, so I was like, and then I found this Zen book I was really intrigued by.
Interesting. Yeah. If you're interested, you should check out AH.
Okay.
It's one of the mind-blowing experience. I went there 13 years ago, but oh man, I still remember clearly. It's one of the life thing. It's powerful.
Wow, I'm very interested.
Powerful. I could only say that. Oh my God. And Seigaku, he's a real monk. It's no joke. He's been practicing for 15 years.
Okay.
And he was in AH for, I think, fully 3 years without going one step out, inside AH. So he's allowed to take people inside, actually. And he asked for the opportunity, and he accepted.
Oh wow.
So yeah,
I'll sign up tonight.
yeah, please do.
Me too.
Yeah.
Want to go?
Go find a date, and maybe in the spring or sometime after the snow, because it's really tough to meditate in the winter. It's tough. So I don't want to make you guys hate Zen just for that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
It's already 12:14 nearly, so we have to wrap up. Yeah? I gave you questions beforehand. Actually, every time I don't reach this point because of all the Q&As, but you got the point, right? So it's first question is toward what is your great design? And just by writing what you like, what you're good at, and what you can stop, it is probably something close to what you become, or what you want to become. So just put that in mind. And the other question, I was just curious for people, where do you want to live outside your home country? I always question this. And I never knew that I would be living in Germany, but I was taking German class in the SFC, but I had no idea that I would be taking it. But in your life, it kind of like, I'm very, maybe the country you wrote in the answers in my questions, probably will be the country that you'll relate to in the future. So just have that in your mind. That's all of the point of the question, actually. Yeah, so I will not go over all the questions, but I think we are almost over with time. So this is all for the.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Baba. Yeah. And same as usual, we have a lunch session. If you want to join, please come. I can't invite you if you have a next class, but you can come if so. If so, yeah. Last week, some student will came to the lunch session. Yeah. Okay. And see you next week. Okay. So next week, in the Thursday is not a regular class day, but we have a class, makeup class, the same time this second period. Okay. Yeah, next week is test and makeup class day for the first quarter of the whole semester. But we have a class as the same as usual. Okay. So see you next week.